Oh, it's so. Oh, hold on. Hold on, it's not recording yet. There we go. So deja vu. It's like for those of you, most of you listening on the audio, you don't know this, and it doesn't mean anything to you. But to the three of us, it feels like we just did this yesterday, and we did conclude with the worst show ever. So it just feels like this is Friday, take two.
And yesterday we were like, hey, wouldn't it be great to have Chris Fox on tomorrow to continue the conversation? And we did it. He is.
And he actually just said, I'll finish torrenting my porn so I can join.
I saw that. Good. I asked him incoming or outgoing, and he says both.
What the fuck are you people talking about?
Over in the chat.
It's just you can
join.
Oh, I'm on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. He says, just FYI, none of us can access SPP 207 on Blab.
You know what I like so much about the self-publishing podcast? Because we don't keep any of this behind the scenes. Just right on air. Let's fix the tech problems right now.
We're off the record, still, right? We haven't started. The show.
No, we've started.
No, we started like a minute ago.
It's off the record up there on the left.
Then it's wrong.
Now
wrong.
It says it's recording.
Now it says it's recording. Wow.
Fantastic.
What's up, Blab?
Let's start over.
All right. I'd like to list what is not going to be on my something cool, and it's Blab today. I actually don't have an actual something cool because. Well, hold on. Let's return in time to when we were relevant.
Isn't this your last?
Hold on. I'm going to announce the guest because I don't normally do that. And we did kind of just informally do that, but formally, Chris Fox is going to be our guest today. We're going to talk about writing to market. Yay. And as Sean blew the punchline on, this is my final podcast in Ohio. That's kind of neat.
Yay!
Well, unless you count worst show ever.
Leaving the show.
We need, you know what we need? We need sound effects for the show. I hate that we don't have them. We should have like a little chorus.
You mention that every time, and then I remind you that I would have to do it, and then I say, well, go fuck yourself, basically.
Well, can we find some way? Are you going to be so excited with your fast internet next week that you're going to want
that I'm going to want to do a bunch of sound effects and clips? No, that's not going to happen. Thank you, though.
I'm going to laugh if he has shitty internet there, too.
My internet is moving from 5 megabits per second to either 200 or 300, depending on whether I can get Robin
I'll be the slow guy.
What do you get, Dave?
Mine, I think it's 100.
20? Oh, you get 100?
I think so.
Oh, that's what I get. I get 100. Okay. And Johnny's going to have double what we have.
Oh,
yeah.
Double or 3 times. Because I know you're going to move and then get the 300 for no apparent reason.
I'm going to get the 300. No, I'm going to get the 300. It's the fastest. Yeah, we had a whole conversation about this earlier in the week because Johnny wanted to know how fast my internet was so he could sign up for the right, Time Warner package. And I get 100, which because when I signed up, 100 was what you got. And
you also got all the cable and phone bundled in, whether you wanted it or not.
Yeah, all the stuff I don't want. And so it's I think it's like 45 for 100, 55 a month for 200, and 65 a month for 300.
Fascinating for our listeners.
And welcome to this show.
No, but there's a punchline here. So I was saying I want 65, and he said yeah, like I get that, but there's really no difference between 200 and 300 except $120 a month. And I'm like, I don't care. It's
a year, $120 a year.
$120 a year, right?
I said, I'm over here arguing for the 300, and Robin is looking me in the face and saying, so 200 is twice what you literally thought was possible 30 seconds ago, but now it has to be 3 times as fast.
Only the best.
To Sean, have you ever had any problems, any lags? Is there any reason to get more that I can use? No. There's no problem. So it's twice as fast as that. Right.
But it's the fastest. Like I see, I just didn't have the choice. I didn't know that I had, slow internet. Now I know. And now I have internet envy.
So expect the show to take a grand leap horizontally next time you hear it. And live viewers, no actual live show next week. I'm going to be packing a moving truck, so we won't be doing that.
I mean,
so something cool. Something.
Well, Rachel Duncan has something cool. She finished The Collectors this afternoon. Karma Police Book 3. So thank you, Rachel.
That's that book that got all the complaints on AWeber when you mailed about it. Heard about that book. Gonna get us suspended.
Oh man, AWeber's been hating us lately.
Not just us.
Yeah, it's definitely time to sail our ship to active campaign. My something cool actually is a little mysterious, I guess, but my something cool is is Smarter Artist right now. There's like a half dozen really awesome things for the Smarter Artist that are all kind of in various stages of percolation, but all really, really awesome. And I don't think I've ever been more excited about this vertical. And I don't know. I'm really, really excited about Smart Artists right now.
I love when you use words like vertical.
Mm-hmm. I bet you do.
Rachel wants to know if you could be more specific.
I told last week.
Yeah, I told Haley and Ethan. I was walking them out to the bus stop this morning about specificals, and I asked for their help to make sure that it sticks in our family lexicon. So we're going to be using that in regular conversation now.
All right.
What about you, Dave?
I said my something cool.
Tammy says, Sean, I love how you're embracing the nonfiction smart artist side. Yeah, I am too, and I'm sorry it took me so long. but I'll play full out from now on. I promise.
Yeah.
Am I just not paying attention to Dave? Because I don't remember you saying you're something cool.
My something cool is that Rachel finished the collectors.
That's kind of cheating.
Yeah.
I've got nothing. I had something cool yesterday. I can't have two cool things in a week.
You are asking Dave to do cool back to back.
Yeah, one day after another. You actually think two good things happened to me in the course of a week? Come on.
That's a tall order for Dave, for sure.
I've got nothing that isn't me-centric, so I guess that's it. I guess that's
another
all.
ab find itself.
Well, no, I meant in terms of like moving and my fast internet. That's like nobody gives a shit about any of that. So whatever. Anyway, so that's that, and I'm going to Chicago on Sunday, which is. Would you mention that in Worst Show Ever? So I can mention that.
Yeah. Does that have something to do with one of those mysterious smart artist things?
Might have something to do with something mysterious. Stay tuned.
John says Dave is happiest when he's not happy. Fact.
Only
happy when it rains.
That is true. Is that like your favorite song? Did you love that song when it came out?
I love that band. So yeah
like they're pretty good.
Garbage.
Butch Vig.
You know what's garbage, Dave? Is when I sometimes see a really, really terrible book cover on any of the booksellers.
We got to this fast today.
Well, and you know what happens though is, and I resent this because when somebody does a really garbage book cover, then you're just attracting bears, and they're going to paw through. They're going to discover various.
I think we should ask for some audience participation, especially because we're a little early today.
Keywords that we can work into this spontaneous conversation. Anybody?
No. No, just go. It's already 10 minutes of completely useless time. Let's curtail it.
All right. Well, if you want to avoid bears going through your trash, then you want to go to 99designs.com/SPP.
What is that?
That is a place where they have amazing designers waiting to do your perfect book cover or whatever other design work you need. Maybe you want some graphics to tease your next book. Whatever you need, they have it, and they're ready and waiting for you. They've got great designers that may or may not be inspired by mystical drugs. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Not a drug. Ayahuasca is not a drug.
It is a medicine.
It is given to us by the gods.
By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt this isn't, of course, an ad read. This is just a spontaneously discussing something. I'm sorry to interrupt it, but I like now that every time anybody anywhere in the SPP community discovers something about ayahuasca, doesn't matter how tangential, we get a notification about it.
Chrissy Moss, a happy 99 Designs customer and listener of the show, says she used SPP to get tons of artists in there with their various designs, and she actually got 2 covers from Content. That's 2 covers.
Well, that's pretty great, Chrissy, but the problem is that if you do something like that, you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose your family, you're going to lose your virginity.
My God. I didn't think you could take things lower.
Everything.
No. With the 99designs.com, you have nothing to lose, including your virginity. Nobody's going to take your virginity from you, Johnny.
Where did that expression come from? Because where did it go? I don't know where it went.
Can you find your virginity?
I found it.
Wow. Kate Morgan.
We should finish the ad read. All right, so start your custom design today at 99designs.com/SPP. Use that link. You're probably not going to lose your virginity if you still have it, but you never know. It could happen coincidentally.
Can
but
you lose it more than once?
You will. Do you remember that thing in Friends where Chandler said, "Can we lose our virginities again?" Because I think mine's starting to grow back. Same basic concept. So you use the 99designs.com/SPP link. You won't get that, but you will get the free Power Pack upgrade, which is very, very important. And if you aren't getting a free Power Pack upgrade, then there's something wrong with you, and that will get you more designer time and attention. You may even get enough entries to get 2 covers out of your design per Chrissy. And you have nothing to lose. You don't have to pay anything if you don't like any of the designs, which won't happen, right, Dave?
No, it won't happen. And bears won't come into your house and destroy your books.
There you go, which is good because I need a solution to that particular issue.
Chrissy showing her covers on there.
It really is gorgeous.
Trilogy. Beautiful covers. So check it out.
All right.
Let's see what 99 Designs can do for you.
So come on in, Chris, wherever you are. I should be able to call on him. Just call on him, and
Summon
whether he's
him.
ready or not, summon him. I feel like we just talked to Chris though, so this is it's just that's how copacetic we are. That's not the right word. And we'll just discuss something else while Blab attempts to connect us, and it takes hours and
Who
hours.
thinks it's going to take 35 minutes or so for Chris to get in here?
Dave, would you like to play the role of Chris? You're our bearded one. Maybe you could just speak for him while it's taking its time.
What the fuck?
Can you pretend that you average 3,200 words an hour? Oh, there we go.
So speaking of the beard, funny story. I tried growing the beard out, and I learned that if I go to an airport with a longer beard, I am randomly selected for security searches.
Wow, that's balls.
Well, you have a very aggressive beard. Your beard doesn't fuck around.
Yeah, that's why I keep it trimmed, and I have to keep it in line.
Do you shave 3 or 4 times a day?
9 times a day.
You get the special treatment at the airport at least, where they, use gloves and stuff?
Make love to you.
There are definitely gloves involved.
Awesome.
So our topic today is going to be writing to market. We mentioned, I think we mentioned it on the show. I definitely remember mentioning it live at the summit, but everybody listening to this show should get and read Chris's book, Write to Market. Sean got it, and then I went and got the audio and listened to it, and it's just so spot on with.
Yeah,
actually,
I'm not even kidding when I say do both. Like, buy it on Kindle, read it, and then buy it on audio and let it sink in a different way, because it is really good, just practical advice. But it's also written from somebody who is really walking the walk here, and it's not just write fast and write to market. It's not code for publish shit in genres that sell. Like, he's crafting.
We're going to write that book next.
I'm ready. He's crafting quality books that readers are really liking, and the reviews kind of show that too. I mean, the average is high, and this isn't like he launched with a list. This is really algorithmically based, which we'll talk about. But it's just really interesting to see. This is kind of a best case scenario on this methodology.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Chris has nothing to say. All right. Okay.
So
go ahead, John.
Why don't you kind of outline the process for us of what you mean by when you say write to market? Because much like I think Sean made the solution earlier when we talked separately, but it's much like superpowers. It could be used for good or evil.
So writing to market in a nutshell, in my opinion, is finding the intersection between something you absolutely love to write and a market where readers are buying that type of book. So you want to look and see what is currently selling on Amazon. To give you a great example, I have a friend that wrote a book about a robot apocalypse, at a time when giant starships are popular. So they're both science fiction, but one of those has built an audience where people are already reading books like that and loving it, and the other does not. So his book, unfortunately, did not do terribly well, whereas the one that I've just released that is kind of written to that market is doing great.
Well, you see this in Hollywood, too, for both movies and TV, right? Where there's definite trends, and a lot of these types of movies, like Westerns, right? Westerns are just super, super, super in vogue, and then they fall out, and you cannot get a Western greenlit because it doesn't matter who the director is, who the writer is, which stars are attached to it. Nobody wants to see Westerns at this particular point in time. And then they'll come back later. Moulin Rouge came out, what was that, like 15 years ago? And all of a sudden, musicals, musicals were dead.
Dark time.
No, musicals were dead. Moulin Rouge came out, and then all of a sudden we had Chicago, and on and on and on, right? Chicago won the best picture like 2 years after that. And it went from a dead genre to a hot genre, and it's just kind of keeping your pulse on it. And the problem is going in too late, when all of a sudden, we've already moved on. Nobody wants sparkly vampires right now, right? But also, if you are malleable enough and you're always kind of looking to write the next thing, you can pivot quickly. That's kind of the benefit indies have.
So how did you identify what genre to write in, and how closely aligned should it be to something that you either enjoy reading or enjoy writing?
It needs to be totally dovetailed to whatever you love to write. So make sure you're not just picking something because you think it's going to sell books. It also has to be something you want to do, or your audience is going to sense that you're phoning it in, and they're not going to be interested in it, and you're probably not going to sell very many copies. As far as locating a genre, I started by making a list of every genre I thought I'd want to write in, from steampunk to space opera to epic fantasy to horror. And then I started looking at those genres on Amazon and delving down into the subcategories to see what books the rank were, what ranks the book were at, say, 20 versus 100. You can sort of get kind of a graph plot. I know the audio listeners can't see this, where that the books at the top are selling well, but the books in the middle maybe are starting to drop to lower rank. That's usually indicative of it's a hot genre, but there's not enough content to satisfy it.
What do you do? I did wonder about this. I mean, this is trend watching, sort of like these are hot right now. And so what do you do in terms of longevity of the books overall? Like if you write something that's with a hot market right now, what do you do or do you not worry about it? And then separately, how do you make sure you don't miss it? If you were writing something that was hot 6 months ago and it just took you that long to release it, how do you address those issues?
So if you release something after the fact, you get it out there and you do the best you can, and maybe that book doesn't do amazingly. But the beauty of what we're doing is that it's forever. So in 5 or in 10 years, you may find that genre rolls back around and you can rebrand or relaunch the book at that time. So there's no ending or forever for a book that you put out. So hopefully you hit the market head on when you put your book out. But if you don't, you just add it to your backlist and you can work with that later. And I'm sorry, what was the first question?
I mean, you sort of answered it. It was just like, and I do obviously have a thought on this, but I'm in the spirit of discourse. If you in the movie metaphor, you release, a musical isn't as viable, after the musical fad has passed. It was basically a different way of asking the same question. Like, what do you do for the longevity of a book if you expect it to be kind of hot for a short period of time?
I think quality is really what you're aiming for. So if you write a really good book in any given genre, and let's say that in a year or two that genre is no longer popular, if you're still writing, your fans are going to find your older work, and they're still going to read books that you wrote in that genre, maybe that's a little more populated today and not so hot as it once was.
Now,
I think that go ahead, Dave.
Well, your book Destroyer is the book that you specifically wrote to market, and that was in March, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And how has that done since you launched?
Insanely well. It came out and shot up to number 200 in the store overall. So I sold over 500 copies.
This was without a list, right? You had a little bit of YouTube following, and you had like a non-targeted list. But
right, I have a list that likes werewolves and zombies, but doesn't do starships. So that was pretty much all I had going in. I had networked a little bit with some sci-fi authors, so I got a push there. But ultimately, this is organic. So I put it up at number 200. It sailed right up there, and that was the push that I gave it. And then after that, as it started to fall, it found an equilibrium around 700 in the store, where it still is. So it sells about 100 copies a day, generates between 35 and 40 mailing list signups, and has about 35,000 pages read.
Now, this is something that is this Amazon dependent, or can you use this to go wide?
I think it would be much more difficult for you to do this wide, because every other bookseller that I'm aware of is boutique, and that means that your relationship is going to matter a lot more. If you want, a brick at Apple, you need to talk to your Apple rep and have them help you make that happen. And no amount of writing to market is going to penetrate that. That would be networking and building relationships with the people at those other retailers. So I think that initially, if you were going to write to market, you'd probably want to debut your book in Kindle Unlimited for at least the first 3 months to get that traction.
And that is where you're seeing like a lot of your push in the organic traffic and also bots and all that. Being part of KDP Select is really what pushes that up, you'd say?
Definitely. So you're looking for the voracious readers who read a genre like science fiction, because what they'll do is read all the science fiction, which means if they're going through your book, you're getting linked to all those other books that you want to be linked to, the big sellers that are already kind of present in that genre.
I'd like to point out that the default, so what I was talking about, like trends and stuff, is you're defaulting to what basically most of us do all the time anyway. So it's like Sean and I wrote Unicorn Western, and it's not like we said Westerns are popular and fantasies are popular. This is just what we're doing. Or maybe a better example is Invasion, which is in sci-fi and had sort of a sweet spot, but it wasn't like and I don't even know. I don't know if like alien invasion stories were particularly hot at that point or not, but that's a story
that was kind of like, I don't know, evergreen hotness, because alien invasion stories, there's always gonna kind of be a market for that. We didn't look for a thing in sci-fi that was hot right now. We just looked for one that we knew, we can get traction in this genre.
Well, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that with like think of fashion in clothing is maybe a better example, because you'll see things that are really ridiculous occur. And not that I follow fashion or anything like that, but let's say that giant hats are in vogue. And so you wear some big, stupid, ridiculous hat, and it looks good for one particular event, and then you look like an idiot forever in the photos because you've worn this big, stupid hat.
Or a Nintendo-saurus jacket.
Or a Nintendo-saurus
that was hot. It wasn't a jacket, it was a sweatshirt.
Have done. But it's like the equivalent of the metaphor is kind of falling apart on me, but like wearing jeans. Like jeans are kind of never out of style. Like you aren't going to create something that's so niche that it's so far from what's normal except for this particular hot time that it'll be completely useless and won't sell any other time.
So are there specific tools that you use for discoverability? Like I know there's a million options out there. What are your thoughts on that? Or do you do a different way?
For discoverability, also bots are probably the number one tool that you've got. So everything that I do is geared around targeting my also bot. So for example, right now I'm running a suite of Amazon ads, and what I used as the books to target are all the other books that I want to appear in their also bot. And that strengthens the link between my book and theirs, which means their audience is more likely to see my book, and that keeps the sales rolling.
And finding books that are doing well, like the tools that are used for that.
Things like Kindle Spy, Kindle Samurai.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't typically recommend those, largely because Amazon's algorithm is very much a black box. Mm-hmm. And so any tool that is looking at their algorithms may or may not be accurate. So, for example, if you've got a book that just shot up to the top of the charts because of BookBub, but in a week will be right back down to number, 55,000 in the store, there's no way for you to know using an automated tool that that's the case. And so if you mistakenly pick that book as your book to emulate, then you're going to be very disappointed if you write something like that.
So there's a lot of research here, and I assume you're like tracking books and how well they do for a period of time before you decide what you're going to write.
I do, and I track the books that I read. So what I'll do is pick the books that I know are by indie authors that are in kind of a subject that I think is relevant. Other books about giant spaceships. I'll read those books to see what tropes they use, and then I'll track the performance of those books to see how well they're doing.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I was just going to say that it's just, I mean, I know this probably doesn't even need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I worry about people hearing this wrong. So the danger there is that you are only right when you write to market. The danger is that you are painting by numbers in a way that doesn't tell the story that you honestly want to tell. And that's so not what Chris is saying, but we had this in Iterate and Optimize, actually, and it's fresh in my ear because I was listening to the audio version this morning to proof it while I was on a walk, and we were talking all about doing this exact same thing for Invasion, and how it's, we almost didn't want to put it in the book because we named it Invasion and we named the sequels Colonization and Contact because these are all keywords, and that done the wrong way could just be terrible, right? And so yeah, you want to know what genres are popular, and you really want to know what tropes work, because that's the reason.
Like, you want to write something that you'd actually want to write.
Yeah, like we talked about yesterday, knowing the why. Like those tropes are there for a reason. Like people want to read those tropes for a reason. So it is important to have them in there, but you also want a firm understanding of the genre. Otherwise, you're not going to connect with your reader. And if you don't connect with your reader, then you've wasted your time and you wasted the reader's time and you've destroyed your name or your pen name or whatever. You really need to, when you're looking for a genre to write to market, and Chris did say this at the beginning, he made a list of different genres that he wanted to experiment with, but all of the genres on his short list were genres that he read, right? You have to have some exposure. It has to be something that would resonate with you as a reader, because otherwise it's just going to be hollow.
Right. And when I say tropes, I want to qualify that. It's not just things like we've got a Maverick crew and an aging starship. A trope example that a lot of people don't think of as a trope is a cliffhanger. So some genres will allow for a cliffhanger at the end of a book and will reward you for that. They love that in series. And some of them will crucify you. If you try adding a cliffhanger to a cozy mystery, your audience will fillet you in their reviews.
Conventions maybe is another way to put it. You have to stay within the lines. You have to write something that the readers expect. It's a promise between you and the reader.
So
right. Good. Well said.
So how do you deal with like a lot of times when we've talked about writing to market in the past, you get these quote true authors and literati sort of people that they just say, "Oh, you're fucking selling out." Writing to it's a stupid fucking comment. But
every band wants to play to a full audience. That's a stupid argument.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I get why that argument propagates. If you look at publishing, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was about selling genre books, but those books took 2 to 3 years to get to market. And so you couldn't measure a trend and in 3 months pump out a book that group would like the same way they did back in the 50s. So you used to have these pulp writers who would churn out book after book after book that would be Westerns or be whatever the hot genre is. And that was totally accepted. But somewhere in the 70s, that changed. So our entire life growing up, we were taught that was selling out when it used to just be the way it was.
Mm-hmm. But now I think that there is a danger of people writing to market when they're not familiar with the market, when they are just, they see what works. I see this a lot in nonfiction. They see what works. They find the right keywords and they just churn shit out, and it devalues the marketplace in a lot of ways. And I think you really have to kind of avoid that.
Well, the great discoverability engine that we all talk about happening one day, which I'm so confident that's going to happen.
That sounds like that would make a good steampunk novel.
Yeah, well, the three of us guys, I haven't had time to decompress, but I actually had a conversation about this earlier today. and I do believe that's coming someday. And I think that will help for people who are writing to market and doing it in a very genuine way someday. And that's going to help for going wide too. So right now, writing to market, you have a huge, just like almost immeasurable benefit from being exclusive to Amazon instead of going wide when you're first launching a book. If you don't have a list with 10,000 names on it, you get a lot of power from, I mean, your book, you just put it into the stream and got bites, and that's kind of amazing. And so I think that if someday, talking in the future, we're going to be able to put these books out and the cream will rise to the top based on not the profit motivated. Because if you look at it now, our recommendation engines are profit motivated. Amazon isn't recommending your book based on the very best book or what readers like most. It's all really kind of self-serving to them. Same thing with Netflix. So something that is, just a little more democratic is, I think, going to serve all of us really well, but especially people who are writing to market and doing it in a really genuine way.
Chris, you're a programmer. What other? I feel like you have more ninja tricks. I feel like you're hacking the system more than this. And is there any what else you got, basically?
So the big thing for me, this is the holy grail, and I've got a book coming out on this topic, and I think you talked about it yesterday, is reader psychology. If you really want to sell a lot of books and write books that are amazing, you need two things. You have to have great crafts. You've got to be a good writer. And you have to understand why people read the books that they read. So why would someone pick up a novel like Destroyer and want to read about giant spaceships and space battles versus someone who is reading romance? They are clearly looking for two very different things. And if you want to sell books, you need to understand what your readers are looking for in the genre that you're after. And so part of what I think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, Amazon's been perfecting machine learning to analyze the marketplace. They have the most sophisticated algorithm in the world for figuring out what you were likely to buy. And I think that to a large extent, as a programmer, I can reverse engineer parts of that and apply it to my own business.
All right, we have a few questions coming in, but I'm actually not going to do these in order because I love Logan's.
I was going to say the exact same thing, and I asked that one.
Yeah, so Logan wants to know: is there any merit to reading a book in your genre that has a really low ranking in order to know what not to do?
Dear God, no. Our time is very valuable. You should be reading the books that are successful that you're trying to emulate. Reading the ones that failed are just going to pollute your kind of creative landscape.
And there's so many of them. Like, you can do so many things wrong. Like, don't put a giant rampaging boar in your cozy mystery in the tea house scene or something. Like, what?
Because we're right. A terrible book can be terrible for a lot of reasons, but and I don't know if you look at those. I think any book you can look at the 5 stars and the 1-star reviews and get a good idea of what works and what doesn't. And even on the books that are doing well, you can look at 1-star reviews and kind of mine those for information. You're going to see some readers who didn't like the book because it wasn't their genre. And that kind of tells you a lot anyway.
Well, what about the books that are doing well that do kind of suck, though? I mean, we've all seen that. There are books that are doing well in specific genres.
But reading the reviews is still going to tell you stuff. It's still going to tell you.
Should you read those books, though? Like, if you...
Right, I want to hear this. Yeah,
I think you should try. If you can't force yourself to get through that book, that's fine. I've picked up some books that were selling extremely well that were terrible. And that really made me smile, because if they can write a terrible book that is hitting, these same notes, you can write a better one that hits.
Yeah. I have the same feeling, for sure.
So Christine Niles has a question: are there any good resources for conventions by genre, like we were talking about before, like things to avoid, things to do, or is the best bet just to read a shitload in the genre?
The two things I'd recommend doing, I'm not aware of a specific genre resource list, is read a few of the best books and then reach out to the authors that wrote those books, because the authors themselves are going to be your single best resource for kind of learning how that whole genre works.
There's a really fine line here where I feel like this was a climactic scene in a movie where somebody said something about this, but there's a danger where you can overanalyze it and then it's no longer it no longer makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, if you had a list of like, hit this point, hit this point, hit this point, you can use that in a good way and actually create a good story because you're doing it the right way. Or you could just end up with something that's just a cobbled together piece of shit because
you don't want a Frankenstein book at all.
Right.
But I think that's the point that we kind of keep circling, is that You have to be writing the story from a genuine place. It has to be a story you want to tell. And you could do it where, maybe it's a genre that you're not that keen on, but you read a few books and they resonate with you and you're like, oh, I can get on board. And then you can take the characters that are in your head and the settings that are in your head and kind of the story that you want to tell and tell that version of the story in this new genre. But you can't go into it blind. Otherwise, I think you're going to miss your aim like 95% of the time.
Mike Nelson asks, do you ever write cross-genre or stick to one?
I write across a whole bunch of different genres. So if you take a look at my first novel, No Such Thing as Werewolves, it's part thriller, it's part urban fantasy, it's part science fiction. It's even got some historical stuff in there. So you can definitely do a mishmash of genres. And if you present a compelling product, people will still buy it. There's books that break out all the time that are not written to market. So a mix works. I just think you improve your chances if you're writing to market.
And I think that what you said there, in almost in passing, is really worth a mention. I mentioned it before on the show. So Unicorn Western it's not really cross genre so much as it's a mashup. It's like fantasy Western. Let's see if they work together. And I think that if we were to present that as a Western, and we said let's give it a Western cover and let's market it to Western readers,
it would piss off 99 out of 100 Western readers.
It would bomb and it would piss them off. But I think if you take that same product and you market it to the fantasy readers, then it works. It's kind of like, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. Well, it's okay, I think, to have Western in your fantasy, but it's less okay to have magic in your Western.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. So one of my books is called Hero Born, and it's X-Files meets Heroes. You've got superheroes and alien abduction. And I thought on the surface that would do really well, and it didn't. So you can take a swing and have it miss when you're doing a mashup like that, but you can also have a really big hit.
What would do you think there's anything you could do I'm thinking of the Unicorn Western example I just gave. Like, I wonder if you could reposition that book and have more success with it.
Yeah, I think that it's worth rebranding. So what I'm going to do probably later this year or early next year is write the third book in that series, repackage them with better covers, be a little more clear about what readers are getting when they pick those books up, and then try relaunching them. And I suspect I'll have more success.
When we haven't actually done a full-on relaunch of this yet, and so the results don't speak for this. But we've told the story of the book that was originally called Chupacabra Outlaw, quickly became Cursed. But Cursed was basically a werewolf story, but with a
Dave
chupacabra.
Was right.
But it was a werewolf story with a chupacabra, and so we tried to present it that way. Well, it's a werewolf story with a chupacabra, and the best way to do that was no. Just present it as a werewolf story, because that's essentially what it is. And then once they're into the book and they discover that it's something else, it still delivers on all the tropes of not all of them, of the werewolf story. And I think that's important. Is you don't want to lie to a reader. You don't want to promise something and then deliver something else. But I think it's okay to lead them in one direction if you're delivering basically the same underlying experience and you think you'll confuse them with the other shit.
Yeah, if you can nail reader expectations and be honest in your packaging, that this is the type of story you're going to get, you'll have a lot of happy readers.
I'm actually curious how Chris's advice and the whole writing to market thing and knowing the genre and the tropes squares with Sean's off-stated, I'm not going to read those other books in the genre, because remember Dave will say, you should read a bunch of Westerns or something to know the conventions, and Sean and I have too. Well, no.
I think we're
above that.
Purposes. No. I think it's cross purposes.
Clearly,
if you're writing to market, you need to know the market. But I'm like, okay, so the Beam is an example here. So before writing the Beam, during the Beam, and before writing Beam season 2 and season 3, Dave's always said, well, why don't you read, that kind of book to give you an idea of, maybe someone's already done the things that you're doing. And for me, no, like the Beam isn't writing to market at all. There's a very specific story that I want to tell there, and that I know Johnny wants to tell there, and we don't want it colored by tropes or by other stuff. So that's a case where we're not writing to market. We're really telling the story that we want to tell, and we're trying to tell it in the most pure way possible. And so like you said, that can confuse the creative landscape, right? So we're trying to keep that kind of pure. Now, if we're writing something specifically to market, that's a totally different thing. And there you do want to understand, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't know the conventions.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one more time to use this with caution, because we've written enough that I feel confident I could take something with a lot of very specific elements and still create something that felt like it was from our hearts, basically. Like, I feel at this point like I could do that. But I could see somebody really just saying, well, I want to write this and this would make sense, but this is what's selling, so I'm going to write this shit. So just one more entreaty not to do that.
So
yeah, I'll echo that too, because I hear this a lot, having put out a book called Right to Market. You need to love this genre and you need to tell a great story. So if you look at Destroyer, for example, I created a cat-like race, which is based on my house cats. I have 2 house cats. One of them is 16 years old. She's ancient and funny. And so I worked those into the story and I had a great time with it. So Destroyer was my favorite book ever to write. I had a blast with it. And if you're not doing it that way, you're probably doing it wrong.
So Gary,
sorry, go ahead.
Gary Jonas has a question. Can you talk a bit about how you used the pre-order to get also bought for Destroyer, how that helped, and why you avoided doing pre-orders for the next book?
Sure. So on Amazon, pre-orders will dilute your sales momentum because they count on the day that the pre-order is made. So the conventional wisdom is try not to use a pre-order. I used a pre-order for Destroyer because it extends the time period that you're on the hot new releases list. So normally you get 30 days plus any time that you're a pre-order. So I put Destroyer up about a week before it was going to go live, so it would have enough time to get sales so that you would get also bought books. It usually takes Amazon a few days to sort that out, and I wanted to make sure those were already populated on the day it went live.
Yeah, I want to read a comment from Tammy Lilly because I think it's just so well said. You need to love the story and the genre. If you don't, and you write stuff you hate for people you think are stupid, you've traded one crappy job for another. And I think that's very well said. We wrote last year, Johnny and I wrote a book called Dead City, which we're still waiting for Indie Fiction Podcast. So it's the longest we've ever sat on a finished book. It's been done for like more than 6 months now. Amy just said, I love Dead City in all caps. Yeah,
I think Robin said it was her favorite last year too.
Yeah, it is written to market for sure. It has a lot of zombie tropes, but we also flipped them on their head. Mm-hmm. And Dave, we wrote the V24 series, and Dave has been wanting me to write a zombie story for a long time. He's pitched it a few times.
Of course, you wrote it with Johnny.
And I wasn't that interested. I wasn't
following behind picking up your scraps.
I wasn't interested in writing the kind of zombie story. Like I would if Dave had, and Dave knows that, if he'd ever said like, no, we're writing a zombie story next, I would have said okay. But it didn't excite me because the CI version of the zombie story would have been it's not really the story I wanted to tell.
They would have been entirely different stories.
Yeah, it would have been about the zombies themselves, about the monsters, and about the fear. And this was different. This is Dead City is much more about the.
You don't know what I'd write, motherfucker.
There'd be a child.
You're telling me I don't know you at this point?
No, you don't.
No, the Dead City that we wrote is very much. It has a lot of biology. It has a lot of sociology. And so we were able to write to market, but still
politics.
Yeah, a lot of politics, but still very much write a Realm and Sands book. And I think that's kind of, for me, that's the ultimate sweet spot, to be able to write something that is commercial, it's going to sell a lot of copies, but it still ticks all of your personal boxes as a creator.
Yeah, absolutely. Did we read this one from Gary? Oh, no, pre-order. So I was actually going to go back to that. So just with the pre-orders, one of the things we actually have pre-orders up for, we have a pre-order up for the next book in the Invasion series. Judgment is up right now. And that launches in June. I want to say June 7th, something like that. The reason we did that is because we wanted, I don't know if this is the right choice yet. We'll see how it works out. Is I feel that there's a lot of value in capturing that strike while the iron is hot for a reader when they finish the previous book. So I think that we could make them wait. We could make them join our list. Then we could blast them. And I think we'd miss a lot of those people because they weren't like, okay, I want that right now. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe. But we are refraining from announcing Judgment to our list. So we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. We're trying to go ahead and capture those early sales. And then when it comes out, we're going to blitz with it and try and get the sales spike, hopefully not too diluted. So we'll see how that works.
I tried the same thing on my first series, and it worked great for sales. I feel like you capture a lot more. Have you guys found that that's impacted your mailing list signups? Because mine drop the second I get a pre-order for the next book out.
No, but that's because I think our mailing list bribes are a little different. So in Invasion, which is book 1 in that series, the bribe is for contact. So basically, if you get to the end of Invasion, then you're going to probably want to get contact for free, and it's irrelevant whether there was a pre-order because that was a while ago. Mm-hmm. For a lot of our other books, it's Invasion and contact. So they might be reading the Beam, and then they can get Invasion and contact. So again, not relevant to a Beam pre-order. And then for a lot of the others, if kind of our mishmash one is Robot Proletariat, because like, what are you going to put for Axis of Aaron? Like, it's not Robot Proletariat, but that's the best we have because we're not going to create mailing lists with free books for every single thing. It's too granular. So in other words, it's a different series we're pitching usually. So it doesn't seem to conflict with the pre-order thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of our people are saying they were having problems getting on, and the screen, the comments are just a whole bunch of blab issues. So, yeah. Tammy Lebrecht has another question. Any cautionary tales from Destroyer, the writing of the launch?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question with a funny answer. So one of the things that I said in Right to Market is the guy that was teaching me some of this stuff, he's anonymous. I don't even know his real name. We call him Mr. Market. He tried to get me to use less in the way of editing. So in 2015, I spent almost $10,000 on editing. And it slowed my production schedule a lot. I did a full developmental editor, then I would do a line editor, then I would do a proofreader, then I would do beta readers. And so this time around for Destroyer, I wrote the book, I edited it myself, I sent it to Tammy as a line editor, so she did a wonderful job. I got the book back, and I added another chapter at the end that no editor saw, because I realized it needed to be there. And this is last minute. So I've got a part of the book that's going out that no editor has laid eyes on. And in that epilogue, I used the wrong character name. So every instance where the character name should have showed up, it's the wrong person. And that went live. And because the book sold so well, there's thousands of copies with that error in it.
Wow.
Awesome.
Somebody had a question. Evan Taxi, can you guys unpack what is the best formatting tool you all use for making your books ready for Kindle? We use Scrivener.
Yeah, sure. We use Scrivener and assistants.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean,
Vellum is amazing. I'm just now learning it because I've had formatting issues as a result of compiling from Scrivener. But for my whole career until the present, I've used Scrivener and been pretty happy with it.
Anyone use InDesign?
Well, I know people do. I know there are people that do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know when Garrett et al., because there are other people doing this now, when they use InDesign for formatting, is that for the ebook at all, or is that's for the paperback?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that makes me jittery thinking about it.
Yeah, there's a learning curve with InDesign. So if you're
I'm
not
sure.
already doing it, I don't know. It depends how much you're going to be designing, whether it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Scott says Herd InDesign is really hard to use. Well, I mean, if you're new to it, yeah, I'm sure it is. But I know that if you're a graphic designer or something, you're probably using it already. So I would guess that that's the reason a lot of people.
It's just use the tool that's right for you, right? Christine says, I tried to do one ebook in InDesign and it was an abortion. Yeah, I think, I mean, Scrivener is wonderful because you really can just press a button that says compile. And as long as all your settings are correct, you get a reasonable book. But it's not like doing an HTML or something. You do have a lot less control.
Chris, what were some of the issues you were having with Scrivener? And
so I was compiling it for paperback, which is something that Tammy Lebrecht caught, and so she had me change it over to ebook, which seemed to fix it. But the issue was, it was hard coding a font in there. It was a terrible Courier font, but only for certain devices. So if you looked at it on an iPhone, it looked great. But if you used a Kindle Fire, it looked terrible. And so I was getting terrible reviews about it. So my very first review for Destroyer on the UK store was a 1-star about that font.
Oh, wow.
So when I figured out that was the issue, I needed to get around that. I've been looking into
and that just makes us all scared because, like, what don't know, right?
Yeah, we've been having some Scrivener issues lately, but it has to do with Drox and syncing. So I think I've talked about this on the show, and this is sort of like a just be aware of it sort of situation. But since Sean and Dave work collaboratively, and I have not super fast internet, and I think that that's part of it. So we keep our Scrivener files in a Dropbox, and then a Scrivener file is actually not one file. It's actually a package which contains a bunch of individual text files for all your chapters, and then an index that basically says this is where they go and all your other files and stuff. And so there were a few times when we would open something and apparently it hadn't totally synced and we just didn't realize it. And so Sean would open and go, "Is this right? This seems wrong?" And we discover, I don't think we've, knock on wood, I don't think we've ever actually lost anything because of this. But when we noticed that, we started instituting a timestamp document. So the last thing I would do before I closed it is I would say, okay, it's 11 a.m., Johnny, on this day. And then I would close it. And then we thought that when Sean opened it again, if he saw that timestamp doc, it was fine. But what we discovered recently, troublingly, is that there was a time or two when Sean was like, "I swear there are chapters missing," which is like, as a writer, I just heard all of us go,
"That's terrifying."
Right. Because I didn't know that. And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, "I swear, it seems like you should have written more than this." And it's because it's a package. I think what was happening is it was synchronizing maybe the index and that timestamp document, but not all of the individual little pieces in time. And then what happens is if Sean opens the bad file, it then automatically starts saving and overwrites my good file.
The indie community absolutely needs a collaborative solution to Scrivener at some point.
Only there was a software package being developed by Sterling and Stone that could do some of these things.
Well, not the writing part, or the compiling part, but yeah.
But yeah, we gotta figure that out because that scared the shit out of me. And so what we've started doing is on that timestamp document, it'll say, all that information. It'll say 55,041 words in the entire draft, and then Sean will have to highlight them and check it and just make sure.
And you all think I'm paranoid for having 15 decoy copies of every Scrivener file.
Well, and then you have to. Well, you do the decoy copies of the Scrivener file, but. Just one quick tip for anybody using Scrivener, especially if you're collaborative, make sure your backup, your hard backup, which is what happens when you close it or hit, command.
It's when your backup's excited.
It's yes. That location, that backup location is not in the Dropbox folder. That is on your local hard drive. And I set it to the maximum number. I think it's 15. So I have 15 backups of everything. And so when that happens where Sean's is overwritten, I'll go, okay, hold on. I'll restore it from my latest backup copy. But holy shit.
But it shouldn't be that hard.
No, it shouldn't be that hard.
But I also don't want to use, Google Docs to write our book either. So, it's someday.
Anyway, so any final remarks on this before we close up shop? Anybody?
No.
Okay.
Where can we find you, Chris?
I know where we can find him. We can find him at chrisfoxwrites.com.
I was just going to say that.
It's like you and me. We're like this. And definitely pick up Right to Market. All of Chris's books are good, but Right to Market is the most pertinent to this discussion, and everybody here should read it.
5,000 words an hour book if you're having difficulty there.
Yeah, every single one of them is great. They're all worth buying, and I know it sounds like I'm kidding, but I'm not. Buy it, read it, and then listen to it in audio. It'll sink in a different way.
Yep. All right, everybody. So thanks for listening, Chris. Thank you for being on the Self Publishing Podcast, and we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Oh, always.